Aloha, friends and family. Welcome back to the reading of our cosmic origin. I just deleted over an hour-long video I made. The background sounds were ones that I really liked, but they just came out a little bit too loud, so I'm really hoping that this one works with me. Sorry about the movement there. I'm trying to get settled here. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I hope you're enjoying the book, the information, I guess books plural. and I have ordered 2 new books, and one of them is the second edition of Ascension, The Shift to the Fifth Dimension, and the other one is a surprise. So we're getting a little bit close to the end of these books. Today we're picking it up in chapter 14 of our cosmic origin, the inheritors and successors of the order of the Essene from about 900 AD to the present. A few hundred years into the Dark Ages, the forces of light began reorganizing in secret and began planning their reemergence once again. These were the remnant seed of those independent nations, Celts, original Britons, Franks, and Visigoths, etc. The original Essene members had reorganized as the Order of the Grail and now needed an outer vehicle to protect it. This vehicle came about when 9 Frenchmen decided it was their obligation to protect what history would consider the priority of Zion, the guardians and keepers of the Holy Grail. The truth can now be revealed regarding the real name of the benevolent secret society that was protected by the Knights Templars, known as the Order of the Grail. This new mystical Western spiritual order was connected to all the spiritual centers in Egypt, Tibet, Agartha, and most important to the Order of the Unseen Masters, known as the Ascended Masters of Light, that guide humanity from the higher 5th dimension in Shambhala. Due to our multidimensional reality, the networks of light have always had the advantage because they are being assisted from what our new science calls the unseen dimensions. On the same token, the Dark Brotherhood has been only operating from the lower 4th dimension and 3rd dimension as they have been curtailed from the higher dimensions. With that said, let's signify the meaning of the priority of Zion, which was the allegiance and oath of the legendary Knights of the Temple. The priority of Zion reverts to the program Israel that was established with Abraham and Archangel Melchizedek. Again, Zion in its original context means the promised land of freedom and prosperity. As the system of the Commonwealth and free world, the true meaning of the program Israel. It was this ancient Abrahamic concept that became the millennial project resurrected by the Templars in 900 AD, as sealed in 2000 BC by the pact that Abraham established through His Holiness Archangel Melchizedek, when Marduk overtly took control of our world system. In modern times today, we could conclude that America was the latest established Zion of the millennial project, for it became the land of opportunity, prosperity, and liberty. Overall, the seeds of the free world and spiritual enlightenment have been an idea carried out and protected by all existent benevolent secret societies. Let's do the math. The Knights of the Old Temple of Solomon became the Templars at the beginning of the 10th century AD. This happened to be the exact time that the Holy Roman Empire development had reached a heightened peak, as they controlled all the new European developed kingdoms, thanks to Otto the Great, the first regent crowned Holy Roman Emperor. As in all prior times in history, this threat of imperial European absolutism at the end of the 10th century compelled the scattered remnants of the Brotherhood of Light to resurface and once again thwart the imperial dynasty, as they did back in Rome. There needed to be a counter-effective plan as a solution to the Dark Ages. Remember, trust the plan. This is the plan we're talking about when we say trust the plan. This plan, came about when the Brotherhood of Light in medieval times, known as the Order of the Grail, began infiltrating the Roman Church from within through a heroic figure by the name of Bernard de Clairvaux, who quickly rose to a high position within the ranks of the Church's hierarchy. The first thing Clairvaux did was to establish several monastic branches for the Church, among them the Order of the Cartesians, among others. At the end of his ascent in the Roman Church, he was chosen by the Pope's primary advisor, which was planned by the Order of Light to work the churches from within. Bernard was an important key figure, a marvelous actor of his time, working secretly as a member of the White Brotherhood of the Grail. With his position within the hierarchy of the Holy Roman institution, the secret Order of the Grail was once again ready to reemerge, and most importantly, once again, to secretly plot the emergence out of the Dark Ages that had been coerced by the development of the Holy Roman Empire, the New Babylon. The plan was simple, since fundamentalist Islamic invaders were not only attempting to seize control of the Holy Land in those days, but also planning the eventual takeover of Europe. Something needed to be done. It was exactly this event that provided the means and perfect opportunity that worked in favor of the newly organized Knights of the Temple. According to all suppressed records, the rise of Bernard the Clairvaux enabled the papacy to condone and charter a military Christian order of knights that would become the Christian military protectors of the Holy Land and, of course, Europe from the risen Islamic invaders. This would not have been possible if Bernard de Clairvaux of the Brotherhood of Light would have not become the primary advisor of the Pontiff Visser during those days. By his request, the knights were chartered by the Roman Church, and so this military order, who was the first designed to protect the Old Holy Land, became, in essence, the secret protectors and guardians of both the ancient knowledge of Solomon and the concepts of the free world that the Holy Roman Empire was attempting to destroy. Therefore, the Order of the Knights of Templars became the outer and protecting vehicle for the inner group that in turn protected the ancient bloodline of the king-priest lineage of celestial messianic descent. According to various scholars within the fields of Templarism and Freemasonry, the families that were direct descendants of the Grail, which means holy divine blood, was known as the Despossene. It was revealed that these families later rose to power in southern France through the Carolingian dynasty, as well as in Scotland through the Stuart dynasty during even later times. In truth, they are the descendants of the nation-states that ransacked the Roman Empire to its knees, corresponding to the old nation-states of the past that opposed every risen empire. It is history repeating itself, but in different times. As mentioned, throughout all of history, the existing nation-states democracies were the lost scattered tribes of ancient Israel. Considering this biblical connection to the historic unknown tribes of Israel, it is obvious that they were intelligent, organized, independent states coexisting peacefully in the early region of Europe as descendants of the nation-states of Jacob, Israel. Of course, the nation-states have been degraded to barbaric tribes in our history books. During the revision of history by the Jesuit order, modern-day Dark Brotherhood, apparently they were thrown under the bus as the bad guys, implying loyalty to Rome, the system of the beast, who is ruled by the Antichrist, or descendants of the Mardukian, Nabu, Nimrod, Esau, Draco, reptilian bloodline. The Knights Templars were the rightful inheritors of Solomon's knowledge and treasure, as King Arthur was the rightful one for the Excalibur sword. It was therefore destined for the Brotherhood of Light to retrieve the esoteric higher knowledge and treasures that had been buried in the old Temple of Solomon before the Visars, old Caesars, of the Holy Roman Empire. The Brotherhood of Light knew that the sacred lost divine knowledge that the Dark Brotherhood sought to absolutely control the world was included in those records. In other words, if the Holy Roman Empire got to those records before the Templars, the Reformation and the Renaissance would have never happened, and America/Zion would have never been established. After all, the Dark Brotherhood, under the auspices of the Roman Church, destroyed and eliminated every library in existence during those days. In the end, this lost arcane knowledge was the great gift that the Templars gradually restored to the earth. Therefore, it was divine destiny that they inherited this lost treasure instead of the Dark Brotherhood. In a situation like this, one can only imagine that the Templars' discovery was not only the unearthing of Solomon's knowledge, but it was part of the divine contract that extends back to Abraham. After all, it is well understood that the archangelic and angelic realms have been working closely with members of these benevolent secret societies. For instance, some of these valuable accounts of information that were unearthed were the blueprint and concept of the Great Republic, the government of righteousness, as it reflected the Lyran, Pleiadian, Lemurian system. Other important records revealed the truth regarding our spherical planet and its solar system, and that explains why Galileo of the White Brotherhood, like his contemporary before him, Copernicus, both associated with the White Brotherhood, revealed this information when the time was right. The fact of the matter was that the concept of astronomy as known by Solomon was known by the inner circle of the Order of the Templars, for 389 years before they revealed it to the masses through figures like Nicola Copernicus and Galileo Galilei. As a result of inheriting the ancient knowledge of Solomon, by the turn of the first millennium, the Templars knew that our planet was spherical and not flat, and strongly believed that, landmarked by a star named La America, was chosen to be the great Zion and the restoration of the program Israel. In fact, they were sailing the seas hundreds of years before the great Columbus, According to esoteric records, the Templars came to the Americas in the late 1200 AD and had established a pact with the Iroquois Indians that had marked and blessed this land for the eventual establishment of the New Jerusalem/America. Overall, the establishment and accomplishments of the Order of the Temple and their activities in medieval Europe was the Western world solution to end the medieval Dark Ages. All historical events, like the Reformation and Renaissance that got our world out of the Dark Ages, were the work of the Templars. Despite what history has mentioned about them, they were knights that stood for chivalry, truth, justice, and brotherhood, sisterhood, among other benevolent things. Most importantly, they were able to restore the lost ancient arcane spiritual knowledge that would return our worlds back into a golden age. The highest masters of this order were healers and developed a network based on the principles of brotherhood and freedom that extended to other mystical groups like the Sufis, who were direct descendants of Ismael, the other son of Abraham. The Templar Brotherhood also included a group of stonemason workers who were initiated by Templarism to become the builders of the cathedrals in modern Europe. It was only through these networks of early European Freemasonry that brotherhood and liberty existed among man in those days. As a result of these networks of light, the reemergence of the esoteric knowledge, the system of initiation that existed during the times of Egypt throughout the Old World and implemented in secret by the Essenes in Jerusalem, had once again become a beacon of light in Europe. Of course, the Templars only initiated people who were ready to once again understand the ancient divine knowledge of the descending celestial beings. It was precisely this esoteric knowledge that illuminated Christian Rosencrantz into establishing another white brotherhood organization known as the Order of the Rosicrucians, which had its roots in Egypt as a branch of the Order of Melchizedek. It is this secret knowledge that enables humans to reconnect with the other realms/dimensions, as revealed by our cutting-edge science. Along with the restoration of the ancient mysteries and its initiation process, it was only logical to attempt to implement the Commonwealth system, and so their first attempt was in southern France. It took them a couple of 100 years, though eventually they managed to create a wonderful utopian community of good people who historically became known as the Cathars of France, almost resembling the Essene community of Quorum. The Cathars existed approximately in the 11th century AD. Although deleted from our mainstream history, this spiritual, peaceful, and educated society was a democratically advanced spiritual community that was wiped out in one of the many inquisitions conducted by the Holy Roman institution to consolidate power. This Holocaust was known as the Albigensian Crusade. However, this Holocaust stems to 756 years earlier, reflecting the day the Roman Inquisition destroyed the Celts, Druids, Gnostics, Franks, and the other spiritual communities during the 4th century AD. Despite the destruction of what became the most advanced spiritual culture in France, the knowledge restored by the Templars influenced great scholars that later, along with the Templars, began to associate themselves as the Brotherhood of the Quest. The Quest was the reestablishment of the Great Zion. In political terms, this would be the Commonwealth Republic that would be based on an aristocracy of knowledge and education as opposed to one of money and power, as was the case for the Roman litigate. Despite their oppression, we did witness a gradual revival of knowledge that originated with the Knights Templar, which a couple of centuries later developed into the greatest event that brought our world out of the Dark Ages, the Renaissance. However, before their purpose was fulfilled in getting our world out of the darkest ages known to man, it wasn't an easy victory for the Knights. As records showed, about 60 years later, after the massacre of the Cathars of France, the Holy Roman institution turned against the Templars in 1307. This coup d'etat was instigated by an impostor king, Philip de Bell, who managed to get his stooge into the highest rank of the papacy as Pope Clement V. And so the Inquisition that has Friday the 13th marked till today was the day the knights were charged, or may we say falsely accused, and thus condemned by the Holy Inquisition of 1307. Not to mention that Friday the 13th was also the date on which Atlantis sunk into the ocean. Many of the knights were burned at the stake, including the last of the Grand Master Jacques de Molay. However, some managed to escape by orders from de Molay to reorganize themselves into different orders of knighthood, so that the quest of the Brotherhood of Light, which was the reestablishment of Zion, the free world, would not end. We may now safely say that all those men and women who contributed to the Reformation and Renaissance were either members or associates of this brotherhood and sisterhood of the quest, or heavily influenced by them. For example, Joan of Arc, Copernicus, Galileo Galilei, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Giordano Bruno, Cosimo de Medici, Cardinal Nicholas de Cusa, René de Anjouan, Filippo Brunelleschi, and many others were all heroic in a sense that they risked and sacrificed their lives for a better world. In fact, most of them were martyred and others arrested for life, like Galileo. In conclusion, these heroes paved the way for a better world, first by initiating the Reformation, then the Renaissance, which led to the scientific revolution, and then ultimately to the fulfillment of the quest, and that is the establishment of the free world, the United States of America, according to its original constitution, the New Jerusalem. Of course, this was the millennia project of the Holy Order of the Grail and the Templars. The first and foremost step was that of the Reformation, which sprung from being able to read the Bible for the first time in the defiance of the sinister law of indulgence imposed by the Holy See, S-E-E. This luxury of reading the Bible is what caused the split from the absolute tyranny of the Holy Roman Empire. This was historically known as the 15th century Reformation, but there was more. This originally started off as a reformation in religion that, as a result of giving the commoner a chance to read the Bible, it then gradually shifted its direction into one of reestablishing education, as it said in the Bible. And with that came the Renaissance for the love and resurrection of art, science, music, medicine, and so on. So after about 1200 years of darkness and no literacy, art, math, science, and history began flourishing once again thanks to the 15th century Reformation. Again, and for the record, all this would never have been possible without the existence and operation of the Knights Templars and their associated benevolent orders of light. Now let it be clear that most of the inner circle and heroic members, like those mentioned above, were all considered descendants of the original Israelites, or known as the Rex Dukes families. For instance, Leonardo da Vinci was from the direct bloodline of King David, and therefore of the messianic seed that our Lord Jesus Christ was also born into. For those reasons, the dark brotherhood of the Nimrod-Esau bloodline that was secretly controlling the Holy Roman Empire during the Dark Ages was always in the persecution of those that called themselves Jews. The idea, as always, for the dark powers and their bloodline was to do away with their rival bloodlines, as it has always been the case, for two reasons. First, to end the seed of the messianic lineage that could be traceable back to Horus and Enlil, Jehovah, Zeus. It was obvious that this bloodline of righteous king priests stood in the Dark Brotherhood's way of arriving at world absolutism. Second, after ending the rightful bloodline of priest kings, the plot was to establish the kingdom of Lucifer, which is the Draconian Empire. And as we recall, this would have entailed victory for the fallen angels/demons, the ancient Dracon race of the Royal Galactic House of Aln. If this were the case, then the battle between light and dark would have been won by the dark side, and this world would have never made it this far into the fullness of time as we approach the ascension of a new heaven on earth today. It is clear now that our planet is under divine guidance, as it was in its conception and as it will be after its restoration. In the closing of this chapter, we may conclude that the plans of the Brotherhood of Light to reestablish Zion, the free world, was part of the process that would lead to the full spiritual restoration of the planet and its people. After their persecution, the Knights Templars reorganized as the Freemasons in Scotland, where they sought refuge and protection from King Robert the Bruce, who was in opposition to the Jesuits and their Holy Roman institution. This was around the late 1600. Thereafter, the surviving Templars had reorganized as the speculative and political Freemasons, along with their seafaring branch known as the Brotherhood of the Coast, the Pirates, who were Templarians that camouflaged themselves as pirates in order to fool the agents of the corrupt European powers. Very interesting. With this in motion, the Brotherhood of Light and the Order of the Quest perpetuated the plans for Zion, which later culminated in the establishment of the United States of America. This was the promised land of milk and honey that was promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel, as long as they lived in righteousness and in harmony with all cultures. America also became the land in which all the people of the world could finally be reunited since our division during the Tower of Babel. Our world was divided in Babylon, and it was reunited in America. For the record, in our modern world, the battle between the brotherhoods became the battle of the Jesuits and Illuminati serving the Babylonian cause of the system of the beast, the Antichrist, and the Freemasons and Rosicrucians who became instrumental and served as branches of the Templars and Inner Grail masters of the White Lodge of Melchizedek. This branch of the Light Brotherhood has remained as guardians of what is left of the Constitution till today, as a result of the shift in human consciousness known as the Renaissance. The spiritual masters that operate in the higher dimensional octaves, known as the fifth dimension, interfered during the late 1800s as the level of awareness was raised thanks to the restoration of knowledge 300 years earlier. Equally important to understand is the level of influence the ascended masters or earth angels have over both sides, for they oversee all world affairs and are always guiding our evolution from behind the scenes. The ascended masters work very closely with and through the Grail masters of the third dimension to provide guidance and protection as earth angels, as mentioned earlier. One last thing to consider is that people who are spiritually enlightened know that there is no such thing as death. After one has accomplished his duties in third dimensional physical form, he or she ceases to incarnate into third dimensional form and ascends back into the fourth and fifth dimension with a perfected, immortal, refined, metamaterial body. For instance, Abraham, like other ascended masters from various cultures, India, China, Tibet, Europe, Africa, etc., never died, as we were told, but rather reached a higher level of consciousness, and so were able to integrate their bodies with their light body in a process called ascension. In most cases, it takes place at the moment of physical death, and others, as in the case of our biblical Enoch, there is no death, but a translation of dimensions from mortal to immortal that takes place since we are energy light beings. Overall, when an aspirant on the spiritual path reaches a level of consciousness where he or she is no longer blinded by the circumstances of this third dimensional world, but in control of them, he or she ascends to higher levels of awareness while keeping his or her physical form. At that point, they could either choose to continue ascending to finer realities of light or stay behind in a higher octave on the earth plane in order to help guide and direct the spiritual evolution of the rest of humanity. Ultimately, it is these earth angels, ascended beings, whatever you would like to call them, that have great influence on our world from behind the scenes and work in tandem with the archangelic and angelic realms from even higher dimensions for the restoration of our planet. In truth, we are all part of a greater circuit or field of intelligence, and our science is now beginning to see that. It is my honor to say that all the prophecies about the return to our exalted state of life is now coming to pass. We have witnessed a long journey from the highest point of existence where we had our common origin, from the great central sun of all that is, as whole light beings. We have explored the great descent that took for what appears to be ever, and now we are ready to return as we begin to explore our collective ascent into a higher level or dimension of existence. What is perhaps the most astounding revelation is that our Pleiadian parents arranged for a time for our restoration back into full conscious earth beings, as it is encoded in our genetics. And that sounds like wonderful news to me, and I can't wait. And I don't have to wait because it's already happening. And when we return, my friends and family, we will be in Section 3, Chapter 15, The Rise of Homonauticus, the Angels Among Us. And when we get a big download like that, I like to leave some meditation time at the end of the video where you can just contemplate, meditate, and stay in the wonderful, beautiful energy of these transmissions. And so, until next time, my beautiful friends and family, we leave you in the love and the light of the infinite Creator.